Hi, welcome everybody to Round the Fire podcast with Kingsview Safaris. This is actually quite a cool and special one because it is actually around the fire, so I'm really chuffed about that and in a beautiful setting.
Amazing, yeah.
My guest today is Matt Dubber from Airms Hunting SA, and I'm super excited to have him out. We've had a bit of a cool morning.
It's been great, yeah.
Yeah, we shot 2 nice impala this morning, a bit of a meat project for a school that we support, so I wanted to get Matt out to come and chat about air rifles, things like that, and he's got an incredible YouTube channel which I enjoy watching with my kids. So, and I find out that he lives quite close to me. I
thought, that's cool.
Get him out here and do it. So how you doing, Matt? Thanks for coming out, man.
Doing very well. Doing better now that we got a nice hunt done and have great weather. It's a bit hot today, but just being out here by the river, being able to dip my feet in and sitting in the shade at the fire, my day's just got a whole lot better, and I appreciate coming out here, so thanks.
And it's a scorcher of a day.
It is, it's ridiculous. It's been a few months of winter, like chilly days, and then all of a sudden, this is probably the first hot day we've had since winter. Hey?
It's crazy, and it wasn't like it was building up to it, it just
happened.
It just hit.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining too much. Definitely us South Africans are fans of the sun. The only thing that we like most about winter is hunting season. So to get some nice sun now is definitely good, and a nice cold Guinness in hand, which is awesome. Thanks very much for bringing these through. That was a nice little touch. Why don't you, obviously I think this might be up on your YouTube channel, which a lot of your fans are going to see, so they'll know a little bit about you, but for the sake of the podcast, why don't you give the guys a bit of a background and just tell them, what you're into, what you enjoy about Airms rifles, things like that, and take it from there.
So my story is pretty interesting. I was in high school, probably grade 10, grade 11, just not digging school, like supposed to be studying for my exams, and ended up on YouTube, and I found a video of guys hunting rabbits with air guns in the UK. And when you think of air guns, you think of the spring, like the Springer,
like
that
pellet guns.
And I was amazed, like, oh my word, you can actually hunt a rabbit with an air gun, like that's crazy. And started looking more into it and really getting into it, and ended up starting to save up for my own air rifle. And the guns that I was seeing on YouTube were called pre-charged pneumatic air guns, which essentially you fill them from a scuba tank with compressed air. And it allows you to not only get much more power out of your guns, but just much better accuracy. No recoil from that heavy spring inside, and just more accuracy. A repeating rifle with a magazine, so you can take a quick follow-up shot.
That's pretty cool.
Things like that. And I looked at these videos I was seeing on YouTube, and I thought, hey, I'm sure I can do that. I'd done a bit of video editing. I thought,
I can do that.
Probably, like, I'm sure at some point with your podcast, you listen to podcasts, you're like, hey, I can do my own podcast. Why don't I give it a try?
I can talk crap for about an hour, hour and a half.
So that's, I ended up starting my channel while I was in high school, and by the time I matriculated from school, my channel was big enough where I'm like, well, actually, I am going to just take a gap year and just focus on learning some editing skills. I worked with a YouTube channel that makes spearfishing videos, and ended up learning some editing skills there and how to manage a YouTube channel. And my channel just grew over the years to the point where it's now, as far as I know, it's the biggest hunting related YouTube channel in Africa.
That's awesome.
So that's not just air guns, that's like hunting in general.
That's incredible.
And that's it's just purely through passion of enjoying what I do and just putting effort into it because I enjoy it, and it growing naturally. And now I'm in the position where I get to travel all over the world every year. I'm working on big projects in the gun industry, not just air gun industry. Working with scopes, like the scope I use today on my rifle.
Well, listen, some of those shots we were thumping today, I think it was working spot on.
It was, it was great.
That was pretty cool. But it just shows also, I think, the one of the things that, how do I say, attracted me to you or found out about you was your Oxwagon diaries.
Yes.
And I always enjoy watching that with my kids. I've got 2 small little kids. I wouldn't say we push them into hunting, but they obviously know that hunting is our business and it's part of the family in the way we are. And you're watching YouTube videos and the kids tend to walk past and see one, and they always just said they want to watch that hunter with the long hair. So that was you. But the Oxwagon diary was so good and very well done, and it was nice to do it.
What I think makes that series so popular, aside from the fact that we're shooting a lot of monkeys, which is so like bizarre to a lot of people, so that's like viral content, but is that it's so authentic in the sense that a lot of hunting related videos are so choreographed and like dramatized, shall we say, and it's not necessarily an authentic look of what like classic hunting is, in the sense that in South Africa we grow up from a young age, and our fathers take us hunting when we're young, and we shoot our first buck and we get the blood on our face and all of that, and it looks very different to what you see in a let's say a hunting film. Obviously hunting in different countries is different, and what you see on some films may be how authentic hunting happens in other countries, but I think for a lot of South Africans and locals, seeing stuff like the Oxwagon Diaries, where it's like really down to, I'm hunting in flip-flops and you sleeping on the floor, and
it's something we can all relate to. That's what I enjoyed. I was like, I've been in that situation before, and I know exactly how it feels, and that type of stuff. And
I think especially with like inexperienced hunters or younger kids, the whole air rifle side of it gets a lot of people into hunting, and I guess we can chat about that as well, because there's a lot of guys who will start off with air guns as their first gun and then transition into something else.
Definitely, and I do want to jump into it, because I myself don't know too much about it, so I'm keen to learn a lot more. But one of the things that I just quickly want to jump back on that I enjoyed your videos is, obviously a lot of the animals that you go after is considered vermin, the vervet monkeys, the Egyptian gooses, dussies, things like that, which are never really considered high game up there that everybody loves. It's not a kudu or a sable or anything like that, but yet the amount of hunting you actually get to do, the amount of shots you get to take, and low impact. I mean, some of the things you went to on dairy farms and places like that, you're not letting off these huge shots that are scaring animals. It's very quiet, and I think that is good for a lot of guys to get into hunting, to do that too.
So the beauty of air rifle hunting for me is, and I do a variety. I do a bit of bow hunting. I do hunting with centerfire rifles. I do varminting with small, fast centerfire rifles. A bit of rimfire shooting and airgun shooting, obviously. But what I love about air rifle shooting is just the sheer volume of shots. You don't go out and you take that one shot. You get a lot of trigger time, and that's not only good for training yourself as a shooter, but it's also the repercussions of, let's say you go out and you do a trophy hunt and you don't get the animal you're looking for, or you take a shot and you end up wounding an animal, and there's that pressure to make it count. Whereas with airgun shooting, it's a little more like a little bit of the stress is taken away. And of course with that, a little bit of the adrenaline is taken away, which is a negative, but you get that trigger time, and you get to you really get to go out and get a lot of action.
Spend a bit of time outside.
Because it's mostly problem pest animals, that you're also actually benefiting. I'm big into like the management side of hunting, and the success stories that come from even trophy hunting is still management hunting, because the income from that goes towards the number of animals will grow. And like you look at like the black wildebeest and how their numbers have grown since they legalized.
That's true.
Like there's so many hunting success stories, and with an air gun, you've all these animals that people aren't able or not interested in shooting, that are actually a problem and need to be shot. Like look at a dairy farm and Egyptian geese or monkeys on a sheep farm. They can do a lot of damage. And you can go out and you can make a positive difference and really enjoy it for minimal cost. So there's no negatives.
Definitely. And a lot of times with those smaller vermins, sadly, the option is poison, which is never good. No one ever wants to get into that sort of stuff. So this just adds another...
Or traps, and then you have to shoot them anyway once you get to the trap.
Exactly. And it's, as you were touching on earlier, kids growing up in South Africa, that's how we learned to hunt. We used to go after those things and build up from there. The nice thing from my side is that being having a trophy hunting business, I don't have to worry about a 50-inch dussie or a whatever. There's no trophy measurement on a lot of these things, so you can actually go out and take the ones that you see and enjoy. So I really enjoyed those sort of videos.
One more thing to add is that airgun hunting is very accessible to a lot of people, and I found an interesting statistic. When I upload a trophy hunt video, it only gets a tiny fraction of the interest as a like shooting pigeons, and it doesn't make any sense. But I think the reason for that is you'll find your 13-year-old farm boy from the the Midwest in the US who's grown up shooting pigeons in a barn.
Yeah.
Or you'll find, a guy in Indonesia who they make all these crazy like homemade air guns, and they go and shoot pigeons for food.
Yeah.
And those guys, that's what they're searching because that's their world.
They can relate.
And they
to
don't
that.
necessarily. In South Africa, we're spoiled in that we get a lot of game hunting opportunities, but a lot of people don't. And so that's that stepping stone into hunting, where you're shooting a pigeon, which is so accessible to everyone. That is the baseline of what hunting is, and from there you get everything else.
I like that. I actually like that, and that's a really good point that you hit on, is getting started with that. So what would you say to a young guy watching this, probably about 12, 13, 14 year olds? How does he start getting into it? I mean, obviously they probably wouldn't go out and start buying the scopes and the GoPros and the recordings and whatever, but there should be good entry level air guns for them to get?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're really starting at the bottom, a PCP or pre-charged pneumatic can be quite pricey. They're getting cheaper and cheaper as economies of scale, as more people get into it. There's like cheaper models available, but you can really do a lot with a cheap spring gun. And like that's where I started. That's where most people start. And if you get close enough to a pigeon, you can take it down easily with a spring gun. So that's where I would recommend people start. If you're in the US and you can easily buy a rimfire over the counter, that's also a great option. But and then if you're really getting into air guns, you can buy that first pre-charged pneumatic air gun in 177, 22, 25 caliber, which are now really easily available everywhere. And that's that next step up where you can really start shooting animals 50 meters to 100 meters, small game accurately. That's and it's still relatively affordable. I mean, as a kid, you probably need your parents' help, but it's still within that affordable price range where you could look at it as a Christmas present or something. And as a parent, that is a great way to get your kids into hunting, because you don't really want them going out shooting their first buck having never pulled a trigger before. You want them to get a bit of practice on something, like feeling that trigger, getting your cheek weld right, all of that. And so when the opportunity comes to shoot their first animal, they know that they can do it with confidence.
That's actually a great point. So you'd say that an air gun would help you develop good skills for shooting a rifle, looking through the scope, holding it tight, without getting that flinch of a loud.
Exactly. You get used to the quiet. You get used to the skill of having to take a shot without the stress of getting knocked in the shoulder or knocked in the eye with a scope. And we even see now, like for example, in Cape Town, Patriot Outdoors airgun shop has a 40-meter indoor range where like there's a lot of people booking kids' birthday parties, and the kids come, they hire out air guns, and they shoot a course where you've got like small game, dussies, Egyptian geese, everything, monkeys with like the correct kill zones, and the kids learn they learn about shot placement, they learn about how to hold the rifle, everything. And those kids get hooked, and then it's okay. When am I gonna get to hunt my first springbuck or something?
That's brilliant.
So
that's actually the foundation for where ethical hunting comes from, because now all of a sudden this kid's grown up where he gets to the point where he can shoot springbuck, kudu, bushbuck, whatever it is, and he's a competent hunter. He's good with the rifle,
and you've learned that
shot placements,
the head or the vital zone. You gain points with that, and you lose points if you hit it anywhere else. It's a bad thing. It's better to miss than to shoot the back legs of an animal, and that's really, really important as well.
That's actually brilliant. I think for most kids that's the way to start.
And as a kid you absorb information much quicker, so starting them early is a good thing to do. So.
Well, listen, I don't know, my little boy's just got a slingshot and he keeps shooting me in the butt with just about every rock or stone he can find, so I think I might hold off on him getting a gun just for now. But it's brilliant. I love the fact that it gives, I don't know if there's a craze that's been going by where guys are trying to get their children to shoot these animals as young as possible, and I can understand that, trying to get out, and you're excited as a dad to get your kid out, but there has to be a way to bring them up through it. And I think
the thing to remember also is as a kid, if your first shot an animal results in wounding it, you can actually be traumatized from that, and you can be put off hunting. I've spoken to people who've gone through that, and it sticks with them, and that image of an animal suffering sticks with them. And actually doing it right from the start, and you know, even if you don't do it perfect the first time, that you know that you know, you can hold your head up high knowing that you were ready, and that it wasn't your fault for not being prepared. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about even if it's not air guns, even if it's firearms, and starting, you know, fill a Coke bottle with water and put it up at 50 meters and practice shooting something other than an animal. Get used to the rifle. There's something to be said about learning that skill.
Really ease them sort of into it and do that. Because there's a lot of the culture that comes with hunting that kids can bring in later on in life. But I think the fundamentals of being able to shoot properly and respect of firearms too. I'm sure these air guns are just as dangerous as what any other firearm can be.
Maybe more, because you don't expect them to be able to kill, and they can. I know lots of. Sadly, I know a few stories of people who've been killed with air guns that were left in the house by parents who didn't think they were dangerous, and the kid shot the other kid, and it's like it can get bad. But so bottom line is, anything that can shoot, whether it's a little BB gun, like, you treat it with respect, and
definitely
like learn, you know, point the muzzle in the safe direction, never leave it cocked. There's all the basics, and rather learn that with something that's slightly less deadly, and drill it into them, so that by the time they get their first firearm, they know, like, you don't, there's certain things you don't do and there's certain things you do.
You got to have that respect of it, of growing up, definitely. And before we actually hit record now, you were telling me about all the different ones you can shoot, different firearms that you can shoot, and different calibers and stuff of air guns. How big can a guy go up with an air gun?
Well, so obviously the classic is like the little 177, and for perspective, that's an 8.4 grain pellet at maybe, on a cheap bringer, like 400-500 feet per second. Now the air guns that I'm using, we kind of limited to 22 caliber in South Africa as far as air guns go. So I'm shooting a 5.5 millimeter. That's, so you get 22 rimfire, which is 5.6. And you get 22 air gun, which is 5.5. So we're just under the legal diameter. But I'm pushing that close to rimfire muzzle energies. So I'm shooting a heavy slug at high speed. And it's very close to rimfire. So you can basically take whatever you can shoot with a rimfire, you can shoot with an air gun. But in South Africa, you don't need a license for that. But you can really go up. In the US, I'd say 30 caliber, 25 caliber are probably the most popular, and that's up to like a 45 grain pellet at 1,000 feet per second, 900 feet per second. But you can really push it up. Anything higher than that, you start calling it big bore air gun. And you're kind of moving towards slugs instead of pellets. And you can really get some heavy slugs, like 350, 400 grain slugs. A lot of people shoot like 45, 357, 50 caliber air guns, and it's very popular for guys to actually come to South Africa and hunt big game. Like, I know a lot of guys who've done buffalo hunts, shot everything. I mean, springbuck, eland, impala, everything with big bore air guns. It's becoming like almost like a bow hunting, where it's a bit of a challenge, or a muzzle loader hunt, where it's like it's a bit of a challenge. You have to get close. You have to do a proper.
I was going to say, your distances evolve, and you have,
but if you can get a good heart and lung shot, that slug's going straight through, and it's expanding nicely. And there's a lot of science that goes into that as well, which is cool. And they're accurate. You can shoot a 1-inch group at 100 meters with a big bore air gun. A lot of recoil to manage, because it's like a slow push. It's not like I'd say the recoil can actually be worse than a firearm, actually.
So it's not that there's no recoil; it's just a different type of a recoil.
I mean, with the weight of those slugs, it's like a lot of those slugs are actually heavier than a firearm bullet. You know, so I mean, you're talking like 50 caliber. And then you get the biggest I've actually heard of is a 72 caliber, and that I think it's between 700 and 1,000 grain bullet. Like, you don't even find that on most firearms. It's like, I was going to say, it's insane. And I don't know of many people who have them, but I know a few people who have them, and they are a bit scared to shoot with them. Actually, it's like a lot of pressure, and it's dangerous, but it's very interesting.
Would you get a suppressor or a muzzle brake for them?
You can, but there's only so much you can suppress something like that, and then it's still noisy because just the sheer volume of air. An air gun operates at, like, I'll talk in PSI now for your American audience, but like, let's say 3,000 PSI, a firearm operates at like 60,000 psi. So 3,000 to 60,000, what is that, 20 times more?
Yeah, it's a big jump.
And the limiting factor is obviously your scuba tank that you're filling your gun from. But because you're working at such low pressures, the volume of gas that you have to put out to get that same muzzle energy is much higher, and that's why trying to suppress an air gun is actually very difficult.
So much harder.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I've been just chatting to you these last couple of days. It's just been phenomenal how amazing these things are.
Yeah.
And in
so
terms
go on YouTube or Google and just search PCP air gun, and your eyes will be opened.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. That's for sure. I can't imagine, more guys haven't been bringing these things and hunting with them. Is it generally quite difficult to sort of bring them into South Africa? I know you're getting different regulations from each country.
So there's two challenges with traveling with an air gun. The first challenge is that because it's compressed air, you have to, when you check it in, you have to prove that that there's no pressure in it.
Okay.
And that's difficult because it might mean unscrewing the bottle and showing them. I mean, I know guys who just write a letter like to whoever's inspecting, like, hey, I promise you this thing's empty, and they just hope that it gets there other side. So that's the one challenge. The other challenge is that in many countries, air guns are not regulated. So like in the US, you can buy whatever caliber you want. You don't need license for it. You don't need register it, nothing. So when you travel with it, you're taking this gun case and you're checking it in, but you have to then prove that is not a firearm that requires a license, and that can be quite a challenge.
That can be difficult.
So I know a lot of guys who've done it successfully. I suggest, if you're in the US, contacting a company like Utah Air Guns and asking them about it, because they will have known many people who have done it themselves, who've gone through the process, and they can advise you on what to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously the other challenge is, even when you arrive in a place like South Africa, where do you fill the thing with air? Like, so it's not easy, but if you can do it, it's something just very different and unique.
So, I mean, if somebody's interested, somebody that's listening and watching this video that wants to do it, can they obviously reach out to you and ask your opinion, or you've got guys in the States that you can recommend them to?
I would say, chat to Utah Air Guns. They're probably the biggest air gun shop in the US. They would know. There's also a project like the farm that does the Oxwagon Diaries. They want to open up they want to start catering for air gun shooters. They're going to have a compressor on site, and they kind of want to cater to air gunning. So there's things opening up in South Africa slowly but surely, where people are starting to cater to your dassies, your monkeys, which actually a dassie hunt is fun because you sit and you wait and you're keeping quiet. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
And they in the Eastern Cape, those animals are in our hunting gazette. They're legal to shoot. There's bag limits for many of them, but you can legally hunt them. Some people will tell you that a dassie stew is one of the most amazing things ever. So it's something different, and it's something you can, if you come over from the States and you shoot something like that, you've got a story to tell when you get home.
It's a unique little animal.
No one's really heard of it over there. You might hear about a kudu or something, but hey, I've shot a dassie. Hey, what's that? It's a conversation starter for sure.
There is, as you said earlier, we're so spoiled for choice in terms of what we've got here in South Africa, really are. But now, I mean, we've obviously got a lot of baboons where we are, and we can go after them. Actually, the cliffs behind us, I don't know if we can see it in the video, but that's where I've shot a lot of baboons here, and I enjoyed. Is that obviously some sort of animal that you can go after with your air guns as more, not entry level, but sort of one up from there without going into those big calibers that you were talking about? Is that something you can target? Because they're a tough animal, a baboon.
They're very tough. So, I mean, I think, firstly, let's just mention, you got to have common sense, in the sense that you need to know the limitations of your weapon. Okay. And if you're hunting an animal like a baboon, which is extremely, even a monkey, which is extremely skittish and wary, and you're trying to take a rushed shot with a gun that's not going to do a massive amount of internal damage, you've got to really know that you're capable of putting in the shot where it matters. So for monkeys, for example, I only take headshots with monkeys. With my more powerful air guns, I'm willing to take a body shot, but you've got to be really careful. And then from a legal perspective, our hunting proclamation, I can only speak about the Eastern Cape because I don't know many other places, but in the Eastern Cape, certain species have caliber restrictions. So for example, dassies, vervet monkeys, ground squirrels, we can shoot them with a a caliber under 5.6 millimeters.
Okay,
legally.
under 5.6. Okay.
But the baboon and many other larger game animals you can't. So in that case, if you want to shoot one of those animals with an air gun, you would need to bring over what we determine to be like a big bore air gun, or over 5.6 millimeters and higher, which in South Africa would be considered a firearm. But I know many people who bring them from the US and have never had any issues because it's not a license. It doesn't need a firearm license in the US. They're able to bring them in.
Okay.
No, I think you might need a import permit, but
yeah.
I think it's a pretty
you probably still fill out
process.
the SAPS form anyway, just to cover yourself and do that sort of stuff.
And then also, this is like a whole different ball game, but you actually get air guns that fire arrows. And I was the first person, I believe, in South Africa to shoot a blesbuck with an arrow gun, an air-powered arrow gun, and I also shot I went out with Quinton de Kock, the cricket player.
Okay.
And he shot. I filmed him. He shot a bush pig with night vision with an air-powered arrow gun. And it's insane. Like it was a normal PCP air gun. We just switched out the barrel with an arrow barrel, and he shot a bush pig in the front, out the back, straight through, down within 10 meters. So that's on YouTube as well.
That's pretty cool.
But after that, our government was like, "Ooh, what is this? Like, do we need to regulate this?" And I got a phone call from a local bow shop, like, "Hey, listen, you've got 10 minutes to send an email with your thoughts of why this should be determined. This should be regulated as a bow, and not a firearm." So I was able to, and as far as I know, they now, that's now determined, accepted as a bow, and you can hunt with an air-powered arrow gun as a bow.
Yeah.
So it's like there's all this new developments in technology, and it's so interesting.
Definitely.
And it's something, firearm industry, it's kind of, I won't say been the same for so long, but it kind of reached the peak of technology a while back, and there's all these little changes that are making things slightly better. But with air guns, it's like massive step after massive step. And it's as someone who is involved in the technical development, I can tell you that it's very exciting to be part of it and seeing how just 10 years ago an air gun was a totally different thing to what it is today. So
and I'm a prime example of one of those people that still views an air gun as a pellet gun. It's just a one load, one shot pellet gun. You got to cock the thing, and that's about it. So I'm fascinated. I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, you'd have to look at different factors in terms of, I'm sure wind be quite a factor you have to consider with an air gun.
It's huge. Obviously, a number of reasons. It's not so much about the bullet weight, but it's about the velocity. It's moving so much slower. It's dropping a lot more. So you basically have to, if you're shooting anything past like 20 meters, you got to have a rangefinder.
Yeah, all right.
And you got to understand how your gun, your trajectory works, which I think is great because it's teaching people. It's like a scaled down long range shoot. So you have to learn how everything works. You have to learn about wind. You have to learn about drop. You have to learn about ranging an animal and figuring out stuff. I think it's quite educational.
Yeah.
But also, because it's such low velocities, the bullets have to be very short and stumpy for them to properly stabilize. So what you find is these short, stumpy bullets with a low bullets to coefficient that just catch the wind a lot more. So there's all those things to consider, but there's a lot of guys. So like I don't know if you know the NRL. Like you get these NRL and PRS shoots.
Those competitions.
The NRL, you get NRL shoots with firearms and stuff, which is super popular. Then you get NRL 22, which is rimfires, which is massive all over the world because it's so much cheaper than spending all your money on like shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor or something. But now they've just opened that up to air guns, and you can compete in their NRL.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can travel all over the world competing with an air gun, which is awesome.
That was going to be one of my questions. I mean, surely you can compete with these things.
There was a competition last week.
Surely is that a different type of one at the Olympics?
It's different. So that's 10 meter shooting. So that's very low power indoors.
Okay.
I used to actually shoot 10 meter at a school just down the road here.
All right.
And you can earn, in South Africa, you can earn your provincial colours. You can go to nationals and you can compete all over the world. But there's only so much fun you can have shooting at 10 meters.
10 meters,
And like, you buy a 10 meter gun, but you can't hunt with it because they're not powerful enough. So there's kind of that disconnect there.
Yeah.
Whereas there's so many other disciplines, like 100-yard bench rest is very popular now. And just a couple of weeks ago in the US, there was a competition where first place was $20,000. $21,000 for first place.
That's not bad.
That's I mean, like,
going. I'll take that.
buy a car for that.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's growing quickly, and it's very exciting.
It's good. I'm a fan. I got so many other hobbies and stuff that I want to do it, but I think I might add an air gun to it too. That's pretty cool. Tell me a little bit about what a bullet, or is it called a bullet or a pellet, or does it determine at what size you sort of get? Because what does it actually do in terms of what a normal bullet would do once it hits an animal? Does it expand or what?
So a normal firearm bullet, many of them will kill through hydrostatic shock, which only happens at really high speeds.
Okay.
Whereas most very low speed bullet, you kind of so a bow, then you're looking at just cutting through,
straight through. Yeah.
Like your blood loss, essentially.
Yeah.
Blood loss. That's it. The animal goes to sleep. Whereas hydrostatic shock with a fast shooting firearm like a 243 is actually the nervous system shutting down from that shock. The shockwave sends so many signals to the brain, and the brain says, okay, I'm going to shut you down.
Yeah.
Animal actually goes into a coma, and then it dies of blood loss or organ failure while it's in a coma.
From that, yeah.
And then obviously hydraulic shock is just a bullet, just that shockwave actually bursts the cells in the organs, and that animal will die through organ failure, which is often you see. You'll take a heart and lung shot. An animal doesn't die from hydrostatic shock; it still runs, but it dies. It'll either bleed out or it'll die from hydraulic shock, from just organ failure.
Yeah, it's just damage.
Yeah, and that's what an air gun does essentially. Okay. So you'll never, you very rarely, unless you shoot an animal in the head, get an animal dropping on the spot with an air gun, because it just doesn't have that. It just can't cause enough damage to the nervous system. But it's basically, so with a pellet, you've got this round dome, and that's basically just blunt force trauma.
Okay.
And the different up until just a few years ago, you only really shot with pellets.
Yeah.
And that's your typical dome or flat nose, and then a waist and a skirt, and you call that a Diabolo pellet.
Okay.
That's what the shape is called. But now there's so much drag on a pellet that it just gets taken by the wind. It doesn't carry a lot of energy, so the air gun world is shifting towards slugs, which are more bullet shape. I guess you could call it a bullet. I think we've just kind of started calling them slugs.
Yeah.
But a slug, generally a hunting slug, will have a hollow point. It'll mushroom out, and it'll just
beat its way through.
Shock. Yeah.
And if you can extract one, do you tend to look at it as terms that we look at bullets, as how it's mushroomed, its weight loss, those types of things? Can you analyze it as such?
Yeah, so absolutely. That is a big factor, I think. It just kind of depends what you're shooting, because some projectiles you actually don't want them to open up. So, for example, if you're shooting a bush pig, and you need to make sure that slug is hard enough that it can penetrate the skull without ricocheting off or something. You don't want it flattening. You actually want penetration is important, because you've got limited muzzle energy, so penetration is a big factor. And if you can make a pin-sized hole through an animal's brain, it's still going to die.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends. There's different, many different designs available, and I personally like a very soft lead and a big hollow point, because I'm shooting small game where penetration is not a concern. You actually want to do less penetration, and you want an energy dump.
Yeah.
But it just depends on what you're shooting.
That's fascinating.
Sometimes you don't want. Sometimes you want a very light pellet. Let's say you're shooting at a grain silo, and you're shooting up at a pigeon, and you don't want that projectile traveling far or coming down and plonking on someone's head, and then you want to use a very light pellet that's almost like a parachute. If it comes down and hits you on your head, you'll think it's a hailstone or something.
Okay.
So
that's actually a good point.
There's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of, especially on your videos, a lot of the slow-mos that you do that are they're really cool, but they're fascinating too. You see how the slug or the pellet goes, and it tends to almost sway a little bit before it hits the animal. It's fascinating.
You watch it through its whole trajectory.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And I think that's what kind of took the airgun YouTube scene by storm, was the whole idea of filming through the scope in slow motion. And there's only so many calibers you can do that with, or because the moment you get some crazy recoil, you can't.
You're going to lose it.
You lose that. You lose that clarity of footage. Whereas an air gun, there's so little recoil that you can actually capture that, and the bullet's taking so long to get there that you can capture that.
Yeah.
And that, as a nerd, I really enjoy that stuff.
It's brilliant. I've enjoyed watching those videos, and I think I've watched just about all your videos, but you must have some pretty cool stories of going after animals with air guns and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, I've obviously done pretty much everything there is to do in South Africa, but I've also had the privilege of traveling overseas. Done a fair amount in the US, done some squirrel hunts on like pecan nut plantations, and done ground squirrel hunts. You know, the US has so many rodents, and I mean that's paradise for an air gunner, because you can go out and shoot as many ground squirrels or rock chucks or whatever as you can. But then I would say my craziest story was I was invited to South America and went down to Patagonia, the very bottom of South America. To give you an idea, Santiago, which is the capital of Chile, is about the same latitude as Cape Town.
Wow.
And we think we're pretty far south.
Yeah.
From Santiago, we flew 4 hours south to get to where I was hunting. So that is, I mean, you're like right there by Antarctica, basically.
It was cold.
Middle of summer, but there was snow on the mountains, freezing every night. Your tent was frozen, it was cold. And we went out, so we took a ferry to this island, and then we drove for 8 hours on this island without seeing a single car, just sheep and guanacos, which are basically like llamas.
Okay.
And we went out to the middle of nowhere, camped on this lake, like on the border of Chile and Argentina, and we were shooting beavers, which are invasive there.
Oh, right.
And they were clogging up all the river systems, and just a massive problem. So their Department of Agriculture there like strongly encourages you to shoot beavers. So we did a beaver hunt in the middle of nowhere. That was insane. Another one. So air guns are quite big in the UK, believe it or not. Okay. Because they've got lots of. So the grey squirrel in the UK is invasive.
I suppose they've got a lot of rabbits and smaller
a lot of
game
rabbits
things,
as well.
Makes sense.
A lot of pigeons and stuff. So air gunning there is huge, because to get a firearm is quite difficult.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I would say the home of air gunning really is the UK. And I was in the UK, also got to shoot some squirrels in a forest, and we made a potjie, as we'd call it, but like a stew. Cooked squirrels with potatoes and stuff in the middle of nowhere over a fire. That was cool, really cool. And then did a rabbit hunt at night as well, for a farmer. So there's a lot of
that must have been pretty cool.
It's kind of like a universal sport, and it doesn't cost much. Most of the time you can do it for free because it's pest control, and it's fun.
And your biggest animal that you've taken with an air gun?
There was a sick ostrich that was on its way out. No one had a rifle, and ended up shooting an ostrich in the head, kind of to put it down. So I wouldn't really call it a hunt.
That's a tough shot, though.
I mean, they told me the ostrich can dodge a bullet with its head. They're so like alert and got good reflexes. So that was interesting. But that's probably blazebuck with the arrow.
Oh, okay.
I had a 2-inch rage broadhead that went straight through both lungs from about 40 meters. So it's almost like shooting with a crossbow.
Yeah, that's good going.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely think there's more and more people that need to get into this. I think in terms of the hunting industry in South Africa, there's a big opportunity. Those guys that maybe they're so hung up on air guns have never even considered Africa.
Yeah,
you could say that they could sort of come and bring one out and do it this way. Obviously, there's things to the protocols of airlines and things like that, but we definitely have the animals for them.
I'll put it this way: if you've come here a few times and you've done a rifle hunt a few times, and you kind of feel like you've ticked all the boxes there, and you want a challenge, but you're not really into bow hunting, whether it's like you're not strong enough to draw a bow, you don't even have experience, and you're kind of comfortable behind a rifle, you can give air guns a try. You kind of similar ranges, or you can probably shoot a bit further with an air gun, but or if you just want to, it's a different challenge to shoot a daisy or a monkey or something. It's a different species. And if you feel like you've kind of ticked all the plains game boxes and you want to do something different, that might be a great option. Or
get into it.
Wherever you live as well, whether it's in the US or whatever, there's plenty of air gun options. So keep an open mind, and there's always something else to do.
And your YouTube channel, do you do quite a few like video tutorials, product reviews, sort of introduce guys to it, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so my channel, I kind of cover everything. I've got quite a few hunting adventures, but I also I've got a whole series on ballistics, how an air gun works from A to Z, like everything. You can think of how everything works. And then just many reviews of different products and tutorials of how to get the most out of your air gun and how to understand it. So I'm quite a technical person. I enjoy the technical side, but sometimes you just want to like forget about how it works and go out and just enjoy it.
Yeah,
so I think that's right. Yeah, I kind of move between technical stuff and just the Volkswagen Diaries is probably the extreme end of just
enjoyment.
Let's just go out and get away from cell phone signal and just switch off electricity and just go enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's the way that you entice people into it. They see what you can do with it, what sort of options it gives to you, and then they can get technical from there on. And that was Air Guns Hunting SA.
Air Arms Hunting SA.
Air Arms Hunting SA. Yeah. And have you got Instagrams, Facebook pages?
Yeah. So my Facebook page is Air Rifle Hunting and Shooting. I kind of wanted to leave it more generalized and not purely for my own channel. So Air Rifle Hunting and Shooting, it's almost like a community. You can post stuff there or get people to answer questions. And then on Instagram, it's just Matt Dubber, one word.
Okay.
And I think if you're keen to get into air guns, I'm obviously not the only channel that covers it. There's a lot of other channels. I tend to do more the high-end air guns.
Okay.
But there's many channels that cover the more entry-level stuff where you can watch reviews and stuff. But if you kind of want a broad overview of air guns, I'd say my channel probably covers most of it. Okay. And especially if you're into like South African hunting, I do a ton of that. And also show a lot of the different landscapes. I mean, I'm sure you'll see a video of a little bit of what we did today, and just so beautiful here, like nestled between mountains and the coast, and like river running through it. You don't get better than this. So
no, that's one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed your channel, is there's so much more to it than just hunting. The scenery, the places you've gone to. I think you guys recently released a video of the Baviaans Kloof, which is pretty cool. And I live on like this side of the mountains, and I was like, where is that place? And that looks so cool. So the way that you guys do it is really cool. We are going to get some footage here down by the coast. We're just busy got our fire going for some Vors. We're going to have some hot dog rolls just now, and then we shot 2 nice Impala this morning for meat, as I said earlier, and then we're going to grab some chow and go out and get some cool footage. Hopefully find a baboon or something.
Sounds good.
Floating around on these cliffs behind us. But look, dude, thanks so much for doing this again. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed hunting with you today, and hopefully we can do some more after this. So
absolutely.
Be sure to, this is obviously going to be on your channel, but for those people that aren't on his channel, be sure to check Matt Dubber out. Anyone that's interested in air guns, he's the guy to go to.
And for guys on my channel, do you want to just give a few brief words on your podcast?
Yeah,
for guys who want to follow that.
Yeah, thanks. My podcast
is for people who want to come hunt here.
Yeah, my podcast is Round the Fire with King's View Safaris, hence the fire, where I'm so excited for the first one to actually do it. We all do hunting in Africa. I get a lot of past guests on guys that have been to Africa. They share their experiences. I want it to be sort of a no grit, if they had any problems with flights, with outfitters, cool experience or whatever, just a first hand experience. So Round the Fire with King's View Safaris, and then my safari business is called King's View Safaris. We're on Instagram. I've got a total of about 4 followers on YouTube, so don't bother going to my YouTube channel. Go to Instagram, Facebook, and then kingsviewsafaris.co.za. Anybody that's keen on a hunting trip to South Africa, I'll be more than happy to give you some info. So once again, dude, thanks again.
Awesome.
This has been absolutely so much fun.